Can you see the presentation, please?
Yeah, that works really well. Fantastic.
Yep.
All okay.
Yes.
Terrific insight.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome from Jean-Pierre and I here in Cologne. We're going to start this session now, our second session of our safety week, our ramp-up safety week for ANSPs and the ATM ANS community. My name's John Franklin, and I'm head of safety promotion at EASA, and with my colleague Jean-Pierre here.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am in charge of safety management activities at the agency.
We're going to hand over shortly to our ATM colleagues. If we could go to 2 slides forward, please, Bogdan. Just to the next slide, and then to the next one. Fantastic. So just to give you a really quick introduction, we launched this Ramp Up, Be Ready, Stay Safe campaign at the end of May to help organisations prepare for the ramp up. There's a whole package of material available. If you go to Google and type in EASA AirOps community, or if you're already signed up for the community site, go to the AirOps community, look on the menu. We have then the Ramp Up campaign has a whole section on the website. And what you'll find on the campaign homepage is the ability to select the different domains. And then within each domain, there are the different ramp-up resources from EASA and other organisations. So on the ANSP side, there's material from CANSO, Eurocontrol as well, and links to other material like that. We've got kind of the clear organisational definitions of what we mean by be ready and stay safe, and then key actions for different stakeholders in different flight phases or operational activities and those kinds of things. There's information on the domain safety issues, and then there's also a set of safety posters that you can access. We've got one particularly for the ATM community. If you want to download that, you can add your own logos as well to that, and all the presentations that you see on the Ramp Up campaign site. They're designed so you just add your logos and go and use as you need. So please do that. So the Ramp Up week itself, we have these dedicated sessions across all the different domains. So as I say, today we're here to talk about ATM and ANS providers and the ramp up for you. So if we go to the next slide, and I can hand over to my colleague Augustin, who will take you through the session.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome also from my side. So my name is Augustin Klus, and I will do my best to moderate this session regarding ATM ANS and particular ATCO. You have already seen Jean-Pierre and John. They introduce yourself. There is one more man behind the scene, which is Bogdan, who is helping us running this presentation. So next slide, Bogdan. So when it's come to particular aspect of ATM ANS domain and the particular resources and mentioned by John, there will be a dedicated aspect for each domain. And when it's come to the safety risk portfolio, yesterday we've got a session on this. I would just to highlight one particular risk, which is skill and knowledge degradation due to the lack of recent practice. And basically, this is a motto for this morning session for us and for the presentation and for our guest presenter, so to address this issue. On top of it, there are several RNO resources related to ATCO domain. I put just some of them here, but you will find them in the package for ATM ANS domain, and so you can download it at your preferred time and your and distribute it to your colleagues and to other experts if needed. So next slide. as I mentioned, we focus on ATCOS and ATCOS skill degradation and fading. But I would also highlight, despite that we focus on ATCO, there are also other professionals in ATM ANS which also might be affected by the skill degradation. So it's not only the ATCOS, but ATCOS are the front line together with pilots. So therefore, from the risk perspective, we focus on them. And basically, we will try to see how our colleagues from various service providers are dealing with these skills and knowledge degradation, and what are the challenges, and what are the practical actions and solutions they've been implemented by them. And for that reason, and I would like to invite our 4 panelists. And first one is Alberto Rodriguez de la Flor. He's a senior expert in ATM safety from ENAIRE. Then we have Fabrizio. Yeah, Bogdan. So then we will have Fabrizio Marchese, Head of Licensing and Local Training Department from ENAF. We will have Silvia Stanescu, Head of ATC Training and Human Resource Management Unit from Romazza, and Antonio Licu, Head of Operational Safety from NM. So, and our first presenter will be Alberto. And Alberto is en route ATCO at Barcelona SCC. He also worked as a OJTI at Barcelona Tower. He joined safety division in ENAIRE 6 years ago, and he's working also as a senior expert in ATM safety, team resource management, and human factors in the safety division of ENAIRE. So also he is assisting the Civil Aviation Authority in Spain as project manager, and he also worked as a project manager at Airbus. So Alberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Augustine. Good morning, everyone. I will try to be very brief because the time is very limited. And thanks for the opportunity to share what we have done at ENAIRE, which is maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not enough, we don't know. But I think it's a very good opportunity to share what we have tried to do during this period. Can we go to the first slide and skip the contents one so that we can be a bit faster? So okay, we regarding this topic we are talking about today, many safety assessments performed at the beginning of the pandemic, and most of the updates along this time have been focusing on the impact on skills and knowledge due to the lack of exposure to traffic and real operations. The term skill fading has been the prevalent one during this time, or skills and knowledge degradation. Although most of the times the message that we read was were referring to the impact on competence. Our approach has been to consider and assess the impact on competence, and this has been reflected in our official recovery plan that considers the reality of the impact of this situation on human performance. This has been done by considering the different elements that comprise competence, which are, from our perspective or our competential model, the knowledge, the understanding of that knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes. So keeping this competential model in mind, we need to consider that each component is affected by different factors, and not just limited to lack of practice, but by other factors which are also affecting the competence, and even of an emotional nature. This is having a real effect on human performance, but the effect is highly individual, changing from person to person and from factor to factor. But are we talking really about a real competence loss or degradation, or is it more a question of readiness? So if you allow me to transfer the work as imagined versus work as done paradigm, what is important is how competence is expressed, a sort of competence as done versus competence as imagined. Can we go to the next one, please? So competence is multidimensional and a very somehow difficult to define and a slippery concept, which is usually linked with regulatory requirements. It is often understood as a binary professional trait. You are either competent or you're not. However, the reality is that in spite of being considered competent, performance varies, ranging from outstanding actions to honest mistakes and errors. So a relevant question for those of you who are involved in competence assessment would be to identify where is the boundary between, so to say, low performance and non-competent performance. However, for the safety management system, the situation is a little bit different. Does it really make a difference for the sharp end for safety management system? What it is important for the safety management system is how human performance is influenced by factors, and what can safety management systems do in order to, first thing, to detect and react, and second thing, to predict and to mitigate. Next one, please. So what did we do to try to maintain ADCO competence during these low demand periods? So maintaining the competence throughout the pandemic has been really a major challenge for most of, or not all of the organizations in aviation. Competence requires, above all, frequent exposition to operation, as it is normally expressed throughout regulations. But some real operation can be sometimes replaced by simulations, even up to a certain extent to more theoretical approaches and classes and master classes. Fortunately, aviation can rely on systems to learn outside real operations by simulations, STDs, and the like. But the challenge during 2020 implied that any simulation effort could be useless due to the high level of uncertainty and the lack of reliability of traffic predictions. We didn't know what was going on with the virus. Did it make sense? So to prepare for a recovery that could take months, even years to come. So it was a very difficult question all the organizations had to assess. On the other hand, there was an additional difficulty that stemmed from the health protection measures in the form of, well, for us, it's a stable bubble ADCO groups that rendered simulation training not quite advisable due to the personal proximity. However, competence-related activities were maintained, and special care was taken to coordinate with our national supervisor authority and to meet all their requirements. So there was also an organizational effort in order to develop support material for ADCOs and to maintain them as much informed as possible about the current situation, about the evolution of the situation. So once the pandemic situations started to improve and the protection measures started to relieve, to relax, competence reinforcement was planned, and specific actions were organized where we prioritized by delaying all non-essential training to the end of the year. Can we go to the next one, please? So how can a safety management system help in detecting human competence drift? This is one of the main questions we have tried to answer during this time. Or what is the impact, the real impact on human performance? Can we measure that? It is very difficult to measure that directly. So you need to go through indirect measures, and besides, the competence assessments during this time have been a bit difficult to be done because the circumstances were really different, and the traffic flows were not the same, and the real operation was not pretty much similar to what we saw in 2019. So what we did was to offer to the rest of the organization the set of tools that we normally use at safety management system in order to detect and monitor this safety concern. That was one of the first ones identified. So we have performed normal operations monitoring on working practices. We have also performed some formal and informal surveys to the ADCOs and well, all the organization. We have also considered and put a special effort within our safety investigations on the potential of effect on competence, and we have found out a very interesting proxy that could be implemented by measuring through the risk assessment tool, the RAT scoring. What you can see there in the on the slide is a couple of graphics that show the normalized average scoring of the detection and planning parameters of the RAT controllability parameters. So we have found out that when there is an incident, the conflict is detected a bit later, and the planning of the solving is tends to be worse scored when we investigate that. So is this a real effect of the pandemic on human performance? So it seems so. So there is a slight effect. Well, it does not translate into real number of incidents, of course, but well, there is something that we have to take into considerations. But however, one of the best proxies we have to all safety concerns is what you really get from talking to everyone in the organization, from the top management to the front-end operators. Can we go to the next one, please? What are the factors affecting competence? Well, there's a lot of factors. There's a virtually infinite number of factors, but there is a, well, kind of grouping of factors, a clustering of factors. The first one is related to the first row of pictures you can see on the slide, related to personal factors influencing the attitudinal aspects of competence. That can really transfer into real behavior. So you can find lack of motivation, emotional responses to the current situation, and the personal impact. There is a lot of people that have really suffered by losing their relatives and friends. So there is also the connection from the activity. There could be also a loss of operational rigor due to not being necessary, not having been necessary for a long time, and tending to replace safe and robust habits by loose habits. Then there is also some fatigue and stress, which is also stressed by the current situation. The second cluster of factors are related to the operational aspects and are also influencing competence, which is the different traffic flows that we can see during this time and the different behavior of the traffic. Now we have seen, and the network manager has recently published something regarding the increased presence of visual traffic, of VFR traffic, which is somehow distorting the normal operations that we used to see in 2019, back on 2019. There is also unused procedures and skills may lead to habit changes. The low exposure to high demand and complexity, and new ATCOs have been trained on the very, very low demanding conditions, and we have had to replace that by simulation and some other actions. And there is also, well, a concurrence. There could be a concurrence of situations that are unexpected or what we are untrained for. And then we have contextual factors, which are more distal from the operation. The traffic downturn, a long-lasting situation, almost 1.5 year, uncertainty regarding the recovery, even though, well, it seems that it's going in pretty well. And well, there's also something that impacts the capacity to respond, which is the financial stress on all organizations. Can we go to the next one? Impact on competence and human performance has been a major topic for every organization and for NIDA as well since the very beginning. And we have done it through the formal safety assessment. So we have considered it a main operational risk with a potential impact on the operations. And this has led to the creation of the recovery organizational bodies in charge of the policy and the strategy and the coordination of all the actions and the internal stakeholders. Next one, please. So our recovery plan has covered quite a number of topics and focus on meeting our needs and IDA's needs and enabling both national and international coordination while aiming at complying with all regulations. So therefore, the main objective or the actions that we have done or the actions subset within this topic related to skill fading has been providing support at the sharp end. So starting through safety leadership, trying to promote and do things and help other units do things within the organization. We have built recovery governance bodies and mechanisms and set a special focus on organizational awareness and communications. Recovery has required finding a balance good enough between enabling, again, exposure to operational reality for our ATCOs while avoiding too much exposure in terms of demand increase. So in order to prepare the ramp up, a reinforcement campaign was performed once we knew that the traffic levels would definitely increase during the summer. In parallel, we also aimed at keeping a sustained operational exposure to smooth demand growth. Can we go to the next one, please? Which is hopefully last one. So focusing on the practical actions, this is something that my colleagues from IASA have requested me to go a bit in depth regarding what kind of things have you done. Of course, we have done many things. Most of them are within the recovery plan, but there are some others that we have had in addition to the recovery, to what is stated in the recovery plan. So focusing on the practical actions, we have organized them in 3 phases. What are the actions on the preparatory phase, those performed during operational time, and post-operations activities? And well, in order to prepare ourselves, the training reinforcement in high demand scenarios were provided in most of the ADS units, and there were impact assessments focused on less practice configurations and hotspots identifications. So for instance, this year's TRM campaign was focused on human error. So what we did was to ask our facilitators to promote discussions on how the current situation was affecting performance, and in order to identify potential mitigation personnel strategies and help the ADCOs overcome the situations. We also organized webinars on skill fading, where almost 600 ADCOs have already attended to, and now they are open to all NID ADCOs, together with a lot of internal awareness activities and international cooperation actions, mostly with our ANSPs and with IASA, Eurocontrol, Network Manager, and also CANSO. So we also performed a dedicated safety survey during summer 2020, and a close monitoring of the recovery has been performed through all the publications, all the documents that you have shown at the beginning of the presentations from the relevant bodies. Sometimes it's been difficult to gather all the documentation published by the relevant organizations, but we have tried to monitor that and gather all the knowledge within just one single unit. We have also performed a lot of safety culture activities. These have been very, very intense, from press articles to internal news, internal promotion, development of best practices, material for ADCOs, and safety notes adapted for each ATS unit. During the operational time, the ADCOs are supported by the brand new stress and fatigue management system, a recently reinforced CISM program with new CISM peers, and our new safety links program, and a lot of many one-to-one safety activities with the ADCOs. So there is also a special mention needs to the creation of a dedicated group support of ADCOs that will support less experienced ADCOs and the development of a specific briefing material for them. So the operations are closely monitored in order to provide a smooth demand increase. And all these previous stress the need to cover all 4 basic resilient behavior performance in an organization: the ability to anticipate, the ability to monitor, the ability to react, and last but not least, to learn. So that's the reason for our post-op activities, where incidents investigations have been performed, stressing the current context situations, identifying the influence factors. In addition to this, we have set up a competence-based voluntary reporting system, so that this can even trigger supplementary on-demand training where necessary. And our steering bodies are readily informed about any safety issue emerging during ops, and the ATS unit managers are entitled to promote specific reinforcement actions on the ADCOs that might need it, regardless their level of experience. Is it a too demanding plan? Yeah, definitely. It's very, very ambitious, and it's been very demanding in terms of resources. But is it enough? Who knows? Who knows? All the time will tell. But for sure, we have invested our best efforts, and this recovery plan is being a real example of an exceptional organizational coordination towards a common goal. And this is it. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. And I know that time is running fast. However, maybe one quick question regarding the SMS you have presented and SMS approach, which triggered my attention, is that if I understood it correctly, you you compare the smooth demand in conjunction with the incident analysis, and basically you try to link also with the competence readiness analysis. So I think this would be interesting for everyone. So whether you can present a little bit the outcome of this approach to monitor specifically demand with the incident analysis and with the competence.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's one of the key topics within the recovery plan, how we control the exposure to traffic. So readiness, the recovering residency requires ATCOs to regain exposure to traffic. But under these circumstances, we need to avoid too sudden exposure to high levels of demand and complexity. So what we do is to to monitor traffic demand closely through the joint work performed by the operations directorate with the network manager. So what we do is you take forecast and they are analyzed on a weekly basis for each ATS unit. So this weekly demand increase is also monitored in order to avoid a demand tsunami, so to say. So ATFM measures can be applied if there is if two criteria are met. So if the traffic is above a predefined threshold, which is based on previous traffic patterns, and we also limited the weekly increase to 20%. So this two criteria methodology aims to avoid unnecessary capacity capping measures. So that if the traffic is still too low, where increased rates are very sensitive to small numbers, and or if the traffic has already increased but it is now stabilizing. So linking that to the investigations, we have already found out some events where this lack of residency has played a major role. So we have analyzed that, and we instructed or requested our safety managers and the safety investigators to take into account all these aspects. And we have found out a couple of cases that pretty much match on this topic. And yes, they are covering some aspects we did not thought of. For instance, one of them was the presence of a lot of VFRs within the sectors and have affected the way to respond from the ATCO point of view. So this is the way we are linking that. We are monitoring, but we are also taking into account the information stemming from very quick incident investigation processes that we are really doing them very quickly and harnessing the process very quickly, so that we can really closely monitor what is going on, so that this information is fed back onto the recovery organizational bodies and can react and take additional actions in addition to this smooth demand increase control. So I hope this is answering your question.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. I think that we can probably spend a lot of time discussing this aspect, but because time is running very fast, I would invite now the second guest speaker, which is Fabrizio Marchese. And Fabrizio is a former Italian Air Force ATCO. Then he joined ENAF in 1990. So he got several ratings: ADI, Tower, APS, TCL, and ACS TCL. He also became an OJTI in 2007, assessor 2011, so operational supervisor in Roma ACC, and currently he is in charge of the licensing and local training department in ENAF. So Fabrizio, floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Augustine, for this opportunity to share the program of ENAV for return to normal operation. I would start to tell that this program created by ENAV is to avoid the erosion of ATCO skills due to the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. And go on with the next slides, please. I will introduce with a brief summary what this kind of presentation will show you. We'll start with the context and mainly with a slide of Eurocontrol 5-year forecast that give us the opportunity to start to think what we have to do for air traffic controller. what we have to take in place in order to give the opportunity to reduce the risk of the erosion of the skills. So we start with this kind of program that I'll show you with the purpose and the development of the program, the organization, how we are going on with this kind of program inside of a control center, ACC approach radar, strategic airports where we used to have tower radar unit endorsement, and also for the small airport, low traffic airports, what we are doing for this kind of air traffic controller. Go with the next slide, please. Here is a slide where the COVID-19 crisis has brought a global air traffic back to the level of the early 2000s. For the 2020, the drop of passenger traffic was over 60% compared to 2019. No other crisis, as is shown in the slides, for example, the regional wars or terrorist attacks or financial crisis, has ever had such disruptive effects on the aviation sector. The slide is prepared by ICAO expresses what has been said and where the air traffic of 2020 is located in relation to important events of the last 40 years. We see a very drop down the traffic with the COVID, no compare with the other crises shown on the slides. Go with the next, please. As we see now, this is the slide that I told before about the 5-year forecast made by Eurocontrol. The air traffic growth forecast in relation to the vaccination campaign. Here is just three different scenarios where we see in light blue the best scenario for air traffic growth. An intense vaccination campaign in 2021 would make it possible to reach the same level of air traffic in 2024. So we need other 2 years enough to reach the same level of traffic for 2019. Obviously, if we look at the blue one, dark blue one, that is the second scenario where Eurocontrol based his performance. If the global vaccination campaign will complete by the 2022, obviously the worst one show you the yellow, show you that the traffic will grow up very slight, very slow movement, just if the vaccination not gives the right effects of this kind of campaign. Obviously, we hope that the first scenario will be the ones that will take in place. So ENAV thinks that we have to do something if we have to stay in touch with the scenario number one. Go with the next slide, where I will give you a presentation of what we are doing in ENAV. In ENAV, starting in February 2021, the return to normal operation plan was drawn up. It provides activity aimed at reducing the risk of skills erosion. This kind of program, gives to all ATCOs to exercise the skills of the unit endorsement that they have in high workload condition. We take the summer 2019 like the reference traffic to manage in this kind of program. As you see, in Italy, we have more than 1,700 air traffic controllers. They are divided in ACC, mainly tower and radar approach, so it's strategic airports, and also we have low traffic airports with 170 air traffic controller. What we are doing with this air traffic controller for ACC approach radar and strategic airport, we started to think to use the simulation synthetic training devices. We have two types of synthetic training devices, a fixed one and the mobile one. And also for the low traffic airport, we do not use to have the simulator, so we started with a case study analysis while to give the opportunity to the air traffic controller in this kind of small airport to increase their skills. Go in the next slide, please. As I go inside the program that is still active, considering that the pandemic state has reduced the number of sectors open at the same time, for the SCC, the program for the SCC ATCOS foresees to use the extra operational time available. The synthetic training device available on site, we have for each of our 4 ACC dedicated real, can I say, it's a simulator, a synthetic training device that is shown. It emulates the same HMI. So there is a local operational service area. We also reduce the familiarization phase. We made and we are making also this kind of activity in a rolling activity. Started in 1st April, and we think to finish it at the end of September 21. But considering the usefulness of the activity and the high appreciation of the ATCOS, we plan to continue further. All the program that I'm going to show you from the ACC and the other that I will show will continue also for the next year in order to give to the air traffic controller for every time increasing their skills and reduce the erosion. Go with the next, please. Okay, about the approach. For radar approaches and not having synthetic training device on site, taking advantage of the extra operational time available, we moved all the ATCOS from the facilities belonging from the unit where they are working to the training center in Forlì or the National Facility Center in Rome, where we have simulators with the dedicated service area for almost all ANAV airports. If we do not have the dedicated area, we use the virtual service area. Obviously, we need more time to familiarization for the ATCO that has to work with this kind of virtual service area. Obviously, it's much simpler to use the area of the same airport where the air traffic controller are coming. Also, rolling activity, and also with this kind of program, we will continue on after the end of September 2021. Go with the next slides, please. Strategic airport program. Here is the extra operational time available. It's also used for the strategic airports. In ANAV, we have 7 mobile synthetic training devices for the tower radar and for the tower unit endorsement in order to give them to the air traffic control the opportunity to training inside of with this kind of tools. We have prepared a program to allow to all the 22 airports to have the synthetic training devices available for the period necessary for the training of all the ATCOS in the facility, in the unit. For almost all, we have a dedicated service area available to minimize the familiarization phases. The appreciation was very high of the air traffic controller for this kind of program. So this is the reasons why we think that this is the right way to use to maintain our skills. Go with the next one. Low traffic airport. Low traffic airport in this small airport we have provided and are going also to continue with this kind of training with a case studies to maintain or increase skills at a more than a satisfactory level. The traffic is very low in this airport, so we are knowing that this kind of training is useful for this kind of airports. Okay, we are going to the last one slide. We are finishing with my presentation of ANAV program. This is what has been done and still in progress at ANAB facilities, ANAB unit. If am I finish with a few keywords, I will say that training versus skills erosion is a great challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Also interesting presentation and interesting approach from ENAF. If you allow me, I would have probably one or two questions, and particularly, we all know that there are airports which are remote, you know, with low traffic, and there was a period of time, and maybe it's still difficult to go to the simulators, but you have come up with some good ideas, in my view, about the mobile synthetic training device. And maybe for the sake of our audience and other colleagues, so could you be a little bit more detailed how this remote or the mobile synthetic training device is, how you have arranged for it, and whether it's a costly exercise or whether it depends, and whether this can be also some inspiration for other ANSPs in case of, you know, future potential demand.
Yes, of course, Augustine. We have the mobile synthetic training devices made by Adacel, a company that give us this kind of opportunity. Are devices capable of emulating the airport service area. They are equipped with 3 monitors. It's one for radar screen, the other for maneuvering area of the airport, and the last one for weather condition and other additional information. All these tools gives the opportunity to manage the traffic with the same operation service area where the air traffic controller works. So we do not need any familiarization phases. We can move from one unit to another unit with obviously the help of our technician that will give us we choose a location and put these 3 monitors and use it for the training. Obviously, all devices are equipped with radio, and there must be a pseudo pilot which manages the virtual plane and emulate radio communication. We found this kind of training very useful. We started for the pre-OJT training, and then we found that could be a very useful things to use for the return to normal operation program. And now these 7 synthetic training devices are moving all around Italy to give this opportunity to air traffic control to maintain their skills, and they are very happy to stay in touch with a high level of traffic, while in real time we do not have this kind of traffic. We hope to have it in the future, near future. So this kind of training with a mobile synthetic training device, very, very useful things. We hope to increase the number of synthetic training devices in order to give you more opportunity for training in the future.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Thank you for clarifying and providing the feedback to all audience. Just for the sake of the time, I see we are receiving some questions. So from the audience, we will try to answer them at the end of the session. So please bear in mind that we first do the presentation, and then we try to look at your questions and provide the answer. Depends on timing. If not, then we will try to provide the feedback to the audience via other tools we have. So thank you, Fabrizio. And our next presenter, our guest speaker, is Silvia Stanescu. She is currently working at the Romazza HQ as a head of ATC training and human resource management. And he is also a head of ATCO training organization since May 2020. So she's also OJTI and theoretical instructor. She has also a bachelor degree in law and public administration and master degree in aeronautical management. So, and she is also trained and certified as an LPAC examiner. So from her background, she was ground controller, marshaller in Satu Mare Airport, but also 16 years as a ATCO tower controller in Timisoara Tower. So welcome, Sylvia, and the floor is yours for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Augustin. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to speak on behalf of the Romanian NSAP, Romața. We can start the presentation. Bogdan, thank you. So, as we all know, what started with some concerns regarding a virus far, far away on a different continent soon took a global turn for the worse. And from few to even fewer airplanes in the skies, on aprons and on screens, we had to face the gruesome reality that the world went in lockdown. At both personal and professional level, we all started having new concerns. Can we stay safe? Can we protect our loved ones? Will we be able to provide for our families? And of course, NSAPs in this context had to take action, starting with keeping the human resource safe and healthy, cutting costs, and of course, preparing for the worst. We can move on to slide number 2 regarding health and contingency. Yes, we went from working hard to hardly working at all, and that really shows in our well-being, in the spirit of our controllers. As you'll see throughout the presentation, we've monitored closely l'état d'esprit of our all staff, not only controllers, people from MED, from AIM, and the techs, of course, and we did our best to try to keep their spirits up and to reassure them of how strong our organization is. Can we please move to the next one? Thank you. Well, so as mentioned before, since the pandemic started, we did our best to keep our controllers safe. We limited unnecessary traveling and even commuting of personnel. We've enforced sanitary measures by providing protective medical equipment and restricting external contact. And we started developing strategies to limit the spread of the virus among the personnel. At management level, decisions were made to leave all non-essential projects aside so that the whole organization may focus on its main activity, which is providing ATS. So we developed new procedures in order to reflect the current state of events. At operational level, the management's decisions were implemented as special rostering, duty on call, working macro sectors, and of course procedures to deal with different scenarios in terms of percentage of infected personnel available on duty and so on and so forth. We basically try to prevent our precious resource from falling ill. The traffic was extremely low at a certain point, and as you can remember, many states prohibited entry of flights, but there were also lots of medical flights, vaccine transportation flights. At a certain point last year, there were some random peaks in traffic. And of course, not to mention that after the lockdown, the rest of the traffic, the basic traffic, resumed normal operations. I'm talking about the VFR, the police and military flights, so on and so forth. So basically, the working positions, whether we are talking about ACC approach or towers, the working positions were never empty. On a different approach, we tackled another issue. We worked diligently to enlist our controllers in the first wave of national vaccination program. And along with this, we disseminated info on the pandemic and on its effects. So moving on to the next slide, we've set some priorities. Once the health measures were in place, competency was next in the landing sequence. With the whole world in standstill, we had to take our action to keep our controllers competent. So we elaborated new procedures, and we've established rules regarding social distancing, conditions and limitations for the participation in training. What followed was dissemination with ATCOs of materials that Romatza experts elaborated on the effects on low traffic and de-skilling. This was done using our training organization. A big thanks to the efforts made by EASA, as we were able to schedule a gradual restart of our staff training. We were able to adapt all courses to the online, and we developed new competency courses. We also moved all essential training competency related in-house, and thus keeping our controllers safe and competent. And on top of that, we managed to restart the ab initio training of more than 86 controllers, which was on standby until June last year. Just as always, of utmost importance was closely monitoring the status of each and every ATCO in terms of competency, license, language competency, medical fitness, because as we all know, human factor is still the very center of the ATM system. Bogdan, can we please move on to the next slide? Thank you. Skills degradation and knowledge fading. Well, not only for the newcomers, but also for the experienced ATCOs, no airplanes meant no exercise, and we all know that practice is what keeps us competent. As an example, for ACC, we went from 10 sectors in summer to only 4. So providing at least a little taste of the old days, and also keeping everybody safe by staying in duty on call whenever possible. We also had to adapt refresher courses, the training refresher courses, so that ATCOs still have a place to practice their skills. We followed with materials disseminated as MBIs and CBTs that were used more frequently in order to keep the theoretical training and the theoretical knowledge fresh. So the word of the day was training, which leads us to the next slide. As you see, at the very center of training is our ATCO training organization, with a lot of broad courses suspended and with the travel bans in place. It was basically impossible to do the training anywhere else but internally. And we had to set another set of special measures, a procedure to enable online courses for ATCOs. We've developed in-house courses approved by the NSA in order to maintain our ATCO's competence, moving as much as possible in the online and restricting the number of participants whenever we talked about classroom courses, monitoring closely the state of health for both lectors and instructors and participants. So it was quite a challenging year for me last year, I can give you that. Because we had to adapt every single unit training plan, every unit competence scheme, and all the refresher courses. Not to mention rescheduling all the competency-related courses and sessions, and trying to accommodate all the medical leaves and the work schedule of both controllers and instructors, making sure not to overcrowd the simulators and the classrooms. But they say that hard times build a good character, and I think we make no exception. Coming down to human performance, moving on to our next slide. Okay, thank you. So as you see, there are ups and downs related to this pandemic, COVID-19 year 1 of pandemic, now being year 2. This pandemic had and still has an impact on performance, whether it's individual or organizational. One of the most important aspects when dealing with the pandemic was trying to keep our people's spirits up. And I'm sure most of us during the lockdown, besides the COVID-19 anxiety per se, felt isolated, unsure, and lonely. And for weeks, maybe you remember the uncertainty ruled, and we could only hear bad news, and that was about it. So The Romanian NSAP, through its organization, set up lots of online training sessions. We managed to organize supplementary simulator training session to make up for the lack of traffic. We simulated the traffic from 2019, both with our ab initio controllers who were on training back then and with our controllers. And of course, we could find some time, we did find some time to address items of general interest from the operational environment and to set up webinars based on case studies. This worked really, really well. The feedback was positive, and we managed to keep people interested. It was a very good occasion to disseminate new information in a very interactive and interesting way for everyone. Not to mention that we were blessed to have among us air traffic controllers, just like us, with degrees in psychology, who developed a special material on the risk associated with the pandemic for ATC. And it was really, really well received. And it tackled not only well-being, stress, fatigue associated with the pandemic, but also recovering from the lack of traffic. And it also touched vaccination and its psychosomatic effects. All of this would have been possible without the help of ICAO and EASA throughout their material that they elaborated and that they provided us. Like fatigue in aviation personnel in the context of COVID-19. That was really, really good material, and we really enjoyed it, and it was really helpful for us. Now, moving on to the last slide, back to work. This graphic was from last week, but I think we have now an even better and more promising and positive graphic this week. So traffic is rising. Looking at the bright side, new milestones were reached by managing to finish our ab initio courses. We became more independent in regards of ATCO training, providing in-course courses for competency. And let's say, if there is something that we learned is that it's not the first time that we are facing a downturn for the traffic. There were the crises from 2001, 2003, 2008, if you remember. And it is obvious that this too shall pass, but afterwards we will still have to provide normal ATS and return to what we do best, controlling traffic. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your presentation. And yeah, it's good to hear that the crisis also brings some new opportunities, like that you have expanded your trainings, and so you manage also you manage to increase your capability for providing the courses, some remote and all these elements. The question for me, and you have touched it nicely, is the human performance and the well-being, you know, because it goes hands to hands with the risk of fading skills. And you have mentioned some instruments you have introduced, like webinars, like leaflets for the ATCOs. So, and what is the next, if I may ask, with this? So do you foresee some future evaluation of these tools and some more support, you know, for the ATCOs with regard to the well-being and human performance? I hope that this will be interesting for the audience and for the panelists, how you want to see this in the future.
We have in mind, at least for the training part and related to the human performance, we have in mind organizing new webinars. that will help us with the subject conclusions drawn or lessons learned, if you wish, because we all have to learn something from this really challenging period that we are facing, and this will come like a closure for air traffic controllers and for our experts in the training organization, because there are some lessons and there are some ideas that we managed to some conclusions that we managed to draw from all of this. So basically, we did nothing more but observe, adapt, and overcome. These are the key words. And controllers are doing just that. And luckily for us, the traffic is growing back slowly, and it's all becoming challenging again. And we are motivated again, and we are gradually returning to our normal stress levels in ops rooms, which is good.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's good to hear that the forecast is promising. However, there are new threats, and let's see how this all will come together. Now, our last guest speaker is Antonio Licu, and Antonio Licu is head of operational safety, safety and quality system, and integrating the risk management at the network manager and Eurocontrol, you know. So he leads the deployment of safety management and human factor programs of Eurocontrol. He has extensive air traffic control operational engineering background, master degree in aviation. So basically the two main areas of his expertise, safety culture, just culture, these are two areas where Tony aims to clarify and promote concept. So Tony, welcome in this session, and floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Augustine, and thank you very much for the invitation to you and the colleagues from IASA. I think this awareness campaign that you have started is very important, because I want to pick up from where Sylvia left it. Is the traffic is coming back. Every Monday, I'm part of the post-ops, ad hoc event with the NDOP, the Network Director Operations meeting, and we look at the traffic levels. And for the first time, we look at the promising outline there for the summer. And in fact, this last week, we have reached our levels above of the peakest of the last summer. So, and we see the ICCs, which starts to have, double digit increases, and certainly July and August, there will be busy months. So we will be probably in certain places of the network, 70, 80% of the traffic before COVID. And that's good news. And I think it's, again, I want to repeat myself, it's very important, this campaign, because we need to bring back our people and our systems at the skills before COVID. So Bogdan, can we go one slide more? And hence, I put it two provocative subtitles there. That's everything changes and nothing stands still, and that comes from a Greek philosopher. In fact, Heraclitus said that. In fact, what is normal, it's always the change. So, and that hence leads to the next one, which surprises our new normal, and resilience is in big demand. I think with this crisis, we've heard the word resilience of the lips of everyone, from professionals to politicians. Everyone talks about resilience, but I doubt many people know about it. So I think Alberto put it very nicely into the context which some of us study resilience engineering for years, the capability to react, monitor, anticipate, and learn. But I think it's beyond that, because it's not just the organizational resilience, but it's personal resilience. And I think it's not only the skills that, the technical skills that we need to take care of our people, but also to work with their mental preparation to come back at the traffic levels before COVID. Can we advance one more slide, Bogdan? In fact, my flight plan talk of today is to build on three pillars. First, on some elements that we built together with the Eurocontrol safety team and the safety operational subgroup. And these are two deliverables. The first one is the overall safety argument, which is a layout safety element, if you wish, that then needs to be adapted to the local level to look at all arguments that you need to look when you come back to normal operation. And related to that, the list of potential hazards with their contributing factors and mitigations associated with the recovery. And last but not least, we will dive into some hands-on what skill preparation. So first we have a macroscopy look at from safety management perspective, and then I'll dive in one or two safety arguments and one or two hazards to look what exactly more concrete meat on the bones we can do on the return to normal operations. So next slide, Bogdan. So we'll pick up first on the safety argument. Let's do one click. The safety argument, as I said, is to serve as support and assist ANSPs by providing a comprehensive reference to the elements of the ANSP's functional system that might have been affected during COVID-19 lockdown period and need to be properly accounted and managed when planning and executing the transition to normal operations. And I want to pick up also on what my previous speaker said. Probably in ATM, we are a bit more fortunate than we are in the airline operations because our air traffic controls, they've not been totally off the operation. They've been managed, less busy sectors. They've been in extended shift rotations to avoid any contaminations between different shifts and so forth. But they've never been, furloughed for months and weeks and so forth. So we still have, I think, pilots that will come back now for the summer busy periods of the schedules of the airlines, and they've not flown for many, many months, or they just done one flight a month to keep their rating alive. So, but that from that perspective, you see there a first layout of the argument. So we have there 5 arguments. We look at operational staff to be competent and in sufficient numbers. Again, the technical stuff, you said that, Augustine, in the beginning, is not just air traffic controls, it's a lot of people in ATM. Of course, today we are focusing in this webinar on air traffic controls, but there are other people, the ANSPs, the technicians, and so forth. We need to look at our systems, equipment, the procedures, and of course, all this transition planning. So argument 5 and actually argument 1 are quite busy arguments. So if we explode in that, so Bogdan, just one click, please. So basically, if we look into the argument 1, we look at the validity of the licenses and certificates. We look at the medical fitness, at the knowledge and skills. And my colleagues in the panel went quite a lot into what they have done and what was possible with new online training, with new technologies, webinars, different sessions, and so forth. Rostering systems back to normal and set up, and I stress the flexibility of the roster is a very important tool for us to allow bringing gradually more people, opening more sectors, having the right sector manning, so we don't have as well delays because airlines have suffered enough. The number of valid controls adequate for the sectors, and unit training plans reinvented and revised as appropriate. And I think you there with the EASA had a brilliant idea. So to avoid this continuation of a prolongation of exception, and we need to adapt the unit training plans for these situations of crises like pandemics, but we need to anticipate maybe future crises and have different settings for these periods of crisis on how many is the minimum hours and so forth, and what the controls they need to do. Let's do one more click. So I don't need to dwell more on this, but have you seen also at the bottom? So basically, it's a classical safety assessment, safety case, if you wish, type of global structuring notation. Below the arguments, you have a sample of evidences, what you can collect to make sure and reassure first yourself, but then also the competent authorities that you are ready to come back. And below there are related hazards, and that allows me to move into the next slide, which will be a very brief view, just one click, Bogdan, thank you, of what this list of potential hazard and mitigations. They are being classified in different domains. I think you have issued a global one as well for the all aviation, encompassing all the domains, and there you have another classification. I think any classification is good. We looked at, again, demand capacity balancing, staff skills training, and human factors, and you can read it for yourself on the slide. And again, both documents, the safety argument and the list of potential hazard and mitigations, need to be adapted. I've seen many ANSPs taking these 2 documents, use them as a checklist, adapt them locally, And I handpick a number of hazards just to show you how the document is laid out. For example, this hazard number 4, insufficient number of operational and technical staff to meet the increased demand in the transition period and beyond. And then you have a column that looks at potential related causes and contributing factors, but even more important, mitigation ideas. And then the other related arguments in overall safety arguments. So let's zoom in a couple of few more. So this is the hazard 12. Of course, one of the issue was that, you know, many of the ANSPs, they were preparing additional workforce, and we don't have probably with the, you know, with the extended shifts, with less people, less sectors, we have inadequate on-the-job training. And then what, again, the same column, what are the contributory factors, the mitigations, and so forth. So, and one more, before we dive into one particular hazard. So again, I think for my fellow colleagues in the panel, they describe quite well all these hazards that anyway they will deal with during their trainings, their webinar, their use cases. I think I'm a great fan of use cases as well. And let's take one, because this is at macroscopic level, we have our safety argument, we have our hazards. Let's dive into the one example, which we built together with a couple of airlines. Some of them are very proactive. Also, they are doing exactly what we do in ATM. They are looking at returning to safe operations. And there, what was interesting is that we looked at what element this hazard could bring during the full phase of flight. So in general, you know, with rusty pilots, you know, don't expect, you know, shortcuts, stick to the flight plans, restrict you know, instructions to in the last moment. In the departure phase, you know, expect lower taxi speeds, monitor carefully, you know, the taxi routing, careful of any additional things that may deviate from your normal routines. Looks awkward because we are usually in ATC trying to do our best to speed up the operation, give all the shortcuts possible. But I think it's better that everyone sticks with what is its plan. So I think the gap between what is imagined and what was done should be as small as possible. Then you have another one in the descent phase, refrain for high-speed descent clearances, again, refrain for offering shortcuts, any last-minute swings of the runways, you know, and then take time to the crew to do their briefings and have time for preparing the landing. And one more click, Bogdan, on that is for approach and landing phase. The space you retrieve it in the note pages. There are quite extensive note pages in there. Again, for the landing phase is the same, you know. Expect longer runway occupancy times and slower turnoff speeds. Expect later check-in on ground frequency due to pilots due after landing scan. You know, use as possible published arrival and approach procedures. Go around, stick to what is published, and should be clearly communicated. And again, limit as far possible application of speed control. So where all this, in addition to this, we have run a wealth of webinars, materials, and so forth. But we can go to the next slide, Bogdan. We are publishing our magazines, and there we have brought a plethora of information. Actually, the one which was at the start of the COVID was Hindsight 30. It was coincidental, but was on well-being, and I think you touched on that as well, Augustine. But Hindsight 31 was dedicated intentionally to learning from everyday work, and we had a special COVID supplement on learning through COVID-19. And what our chief editor of the magazine, Steve Shurik, does very, very well, it brings, in addition to the aviation, other domains, you know, sports professionals, medical sectors, and so forth. So there are a lot of things to learn from other domains. Actually, the Hindsight 32, which is graphically laid out as we speak, the title of the magazine and the content, it's about this new reality that we have around that. So moving towards the final part of the presentation, actually, where do you find all this information? Actually, it's the last slide. Obviously, we publish everything on Skybrary. You have there some links, but once you arrive on Skybrary, just type in the search engine of COVID-19, and you end up in the pages, and you have all these macroscopic safety management, support methods and tools, but also detail elements, what you can encompass in your trainings, reviews, and so forth. So I'll stop here, Augustine. I think we can still have some time for Q&A from the audience. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, for the presentation, and just maybe few thoughts from my side and maybe some question regarding the if I would call it generic safety case to support the return to the normal operation. You know very well that there are two parties, and one is ANSP and one is NSA when it's come to the changes and all these. And I'm glad to see such a generic safety case which is helping both parties. First of all, the ANSP to sum up all the hazards and potential mitigation, but also for NSA, we don't have to forget that we have an authority at the end who is dealing with this and needs to potentially approve any change regarding the operation. Yeah, safety argument is top argument, trying to address or convince the particular participant that the change is safe, you know. So was there any, if I ask in this way, some feedback also, not only from ANSP, because I think that you are on daily basis with the ANSP, but also from the NSA point of view regarding the overarching safety argument and some elements coming from that nice piece of work.
Yes, thank you, Agustin. And that is spot on. We had several, competent authorities that they appreciated the document because it helped their conversation with the NSPs. And as you well know, even better than me, with the 373, now all the changes are in the collimator of the NSA, not only safety impact. So you have to have a continuous, discussion with your competent authority. And of course, they've been hit same like the NSPs. They could not perform their, audits on site. They could not perform their inspections and visits. So also that helped them, to be creative in their, maybe desktop reviews, but also what kind of evidences and what they would be expecting from the NSPs. And I think also what you put forward with the advices on the unit training and competency plans, I think that was very useful because everyone was stuck saying, look, what do we do? Because at one point, our workforce will run out of, minimum time in position, minimum time in the unit, and so forth. And I think the fact that they opened this dialogue between them, that was I think what unlocked, many months ago. And since there, what I see with both parties is, everyone, and even ourselves, I'm part of a round table with the chief operating officers, and they are giving their feedback on their experience with the authorities. But there, what came very clearly at these meetings, that sometimes people are too much attached. We need a high fidelity simulator. If it's not a replica of the ops room, then it's not good enough. And I think in this conversation, what came out, and people were, I think, creating enough to find solution was, what is more important is the training objectives and the training program. And the fact that, the simulator may not be the replica of the ops room, that is not the problem, depending what, we want to retrain and reskill. So you don't need for the soft skills of how do we coordinate, how do we communicate, the TRM. There have been several samples of, online TRM session, and it is one of the questions, I think, in the Q&A. Yes, there have been sessions on the TRM, and we have updated, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the TRM guidelines with the samples on that. And again, on Skybrary, you can go there and find them. And these things, of course, they had to be done with the full endorsement of the local authority. And having something in your hand is better than going from a blank page and going to try to imagine all the elements. Of course, everyone still needs to see if it's complete and correct of all the changes that they applied locally.
Thank you, Tony. And basically, this nicely brings me to the questions we have from the audience. And basically, you have touched it quite nicely, that what data and/or guidance is available for ANSP recovering competence and readying for increasing traffic without the use of synthetic training devices. And you have mentioned some elements. Maybe I will also ask other colleagues whether they can think about some other useful tool. Not only that simulator, we all know that simulator was a key element for the recovery and maintenance, but there were some units which could not attend the simulator. They should find out some other means, and we have seen from Fabrizio some aspect, but maybe I open the floor to everyone to react. So Alberto, Fabrizio, or Silvia, do you think about some possible?
Yes, Augustine.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. Yes,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was activating my cam. Thank you. It's a quite a difficult question. You know, when there is no single university in the world, as far as I know, offering any educational program about recovering from a worldwide pandemic and the impact it has on aviation. So organizations, we need to do what we can. So unfortunately, there is not such a guidance, but we have the capacity, and organizations know, and linking to what Tony just said, what it is important is to know what is your objective, what is your training objective. So one of the things we have done, and this is not implemented within any documentary guidance, but we have tried to focus on what is practice less, and what are the kind of configurations you don't normally practice during this time. And of course, we have tried to promote the use cases discussions, and we have also tried to promote, but due to lack of resources, we have not been able to do it. But you can organize some case discussions where not focused on incidents, but on good practices. Of course, you can record a radar period of time and see how the ATCOs are working and are doing the things and providing separation, and use that as a refresher training, and use it as a means to wake up the memories of the ATCOs. So in a way, the thing is that you need to develop your objectives in accordance to your needs, and they are particular to the ATS unit, and they might be also particular to the sector itself. So this is more or less our generic approach. Maybe my colleagues can add something to this.
Yeah. Is there anything, Silvia, Fabrizio, you would add?
Okay, as I said before, okay, we use a case study, as Alberto says, that could be useful for this kind of training. Obviously, the synthetic training device is the main opportunity to increase training for ATCOs for this kind of situation. Where you do not have a simulator or you cannot use, the case study could be useful. We found it very useful for show to a traffic controller what was taking place by other colleagues. Start with a conversation with the other colleagues to which we use the target that we have to reach in cooperation with the safety department. So we think that the case study is a good alternative for the simulator. Obviously, where you can do it, where you can think that it could be useful, because you do not use the case study where you can have the opportunity to use the simulator. This is one way, obviously, by my side.
Yeah, thank you, Fabrizio. And I think that seems that all, Silvia, I just give the floor, Silvia, if she wants to add something more to that feedback.
Well, Fabrizio was perfectly right. In our case, the self-study and these the webinars that we designed, for instance, once we designed a webinar on special VFR, and we've had more than 100 participants. It was really, really nice. It was a case study. it was a good way because we had more time and people were willing to talk about it, to talk about issues, to talk about different events in their activity, and it was really, really nice. But these webinars, they only work if they are themed, because otherwise everyone starts telling stories from their childhood and from their years from at the beginning of their careers. So yeah, you need to have a discussion framework. But these really work, and not only these, but also the self-study and the self-study using e-learning platforms. And Eurocontrol has lots and lots of modules that were really nice. And throughout our training organization, the training managers, the responsible with the training at each and every unit, they made sure that they would assign homeworks, if you will.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. I think that we all agree that everything which is produced needs to have a certain structure and preparation and everything. I am also turning back to Alberto, because in his slide he was addressing some elements which might potentially help also, is one-to-one safety, you know, and maybe Alberto, you can also provide some feedback on this element.
Yes, thank you, Augustine. Of course, it was something I mentioned, but I didn't go too much in depth about that, but it is something important. When you think about recovering competence or reinforcing competence, of course, you tend to think about training, formal training, going to the simulator, classrooms, e-learning and stuff like that. But there is a bunch of activities you can perform to help ADCOs maintain and recover competence, or to reinforce their skills and knowledge. So we have been doing some kind of one-to-one safety, where all of our regional managers spend more time on the ops room, so that they can spend time together with the ADCOs and sit down with them, see what's going on in the sectors. They can even tell what happened in a recent incident, or the kind of problems people are having, so that they are having this kind of system behavior feedback directly. And this is also helping the people to create awareness and pay a bit more attention and learn a bit more, and even to remind things they had not fully reminded for the moment. As an example, we also know that one of our ATS unit has organized during the briefings, pre-service briefings, what they call the quiz of the day. So they place a very challenging question about the local procedures. It's a complex one. It's not obvious to answer. So the people keep during that day thinking about and discussing about that topic. So this is the objective is not answering the question, of course, but the objective is to keep the people active and to keep the people minds working on the previous knowledge, and helping the people access their memory so that they can recover them more quickly. And this is also contributing a lot to safety and to regaining confidence and to regaining competence, and to do it in a nice and easy way, so that it's not judgmental and not taking into account that, yeah, you have lost of your competence. No, we know that you have your competence, but you just need to recover that and refresh some of the things. So there is a bunch of good things that you can do very close to the sharp end. And our obsession is to go close to the sharp end, close to the ADCOs, and talk to them, and gathering their concerns, and trying to do something about them, and to share our information with them. This is what we call one-to-one safety, and this is this is contributing very strongly to regaining confidence, and to build up the skills and knowledge again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. I think that it's a nice summary, and this brings me to maybe one topic which probably play a big role here, and it's a safety and the safety culture and the positive safety culture within the organization, and talking each other openly and trying to address all the necessary elements from the competence skill or whatever. I think that there should be an open channel for every aviation personnel to freely talk to the manager and address the safety aspect. So if I turn to all of you, and maybe just the two key words, if you would like to pass to the audience when it's come to the skill degradation and all these elements. So if I start with Tony, please.
Yeah, thank you, Augustine. I would come back to your topic on culture, and I think the issue that I will put forward is, in addition to the technical reskilling, is the mental preparation, and that it's a part of the capability, and I would say psychological safety, that we are able to speak up without being afraid about our issue, about how confident we are. We need to to build a mental preparation, because I agree with Alberto, the competency is not lost. They were the same people, they've been to the same school, they've never been in a busy traffic environment. And I get inspiration from sport psychology. Look at sport teams, what they do. I have one of the use cases that I'm using, and I know I'm too long, you asked 2 words, is look at the tennis player which were training themselves in the hotel room in the Australian Open. I'm not telling we should train. Also, we have the e-learning modules and so forth, but we do most of things and then get the mental preparation. So at the day when I go into the ops room, I'm mentally prepared, and in addition to my skills, that probably they would have been rusty, but I think a lot of it is the mental preparation.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, mental preparation, keywords. Fabrizio, if you think. I think, Fabrizio, you are muted. Yeah. Try again.
You hear me now?
Yes, yeah, excellent.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, as I told during the presentation, for me, the training is the main target, and my keywords is training in order to go versus skills erosion. So the great challenge is the training. Training skills erosion goes in opposite direction, but if you move the training versus skills erosion, you will win this challenge.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Yeah, good point as well. Sylvia.
Well, you asked for 2 words or a couple of words. I would say stay safe and competent. It's not only the management duty to ensure your safety and ensuring that you maintain your competency, but it's in your hands as well.
Yeah, thank you. Good remark. So, Alberto, final say from your side.
Thank you, Augustine. I would say to pay special care to well-being and mental preparation. I fully agree with Tony. You also need to promote trust in our sharp-end experts, not just ATCOs, but flow technicians and systems technicians, all the people working very closely to the operation. And the way to do it is to provide support by strengthening the connection from the management with the sharp end. Thank you, August.
Thank you, Alberto. I think that it's an excellent final say, and from my perspective, just please don't forget the other personnel. So they all deserve attention. They all deserve our regards and also our support. Because not only ATCOs, but the ATCOs would never work without the other personnel. In that aspect. So thank you all for your kind words. And then I turn to the few more slides from my side, in order to close this session. So basically, the next session will be this afternoon on the airdrome operators. So tomorrow we speak about the flight crew and ops. So don't forget that for every session you need an individual registration. So all sessions are recorded and will be available under the event. So you just need to Google, the link is on the slide, the community, EASA community topics, ramp, be ready, stay safe. Next slide, Bogdan. And some more elements. Subscribe to EASA COVID-19 webpage for the official update. Find your specific domain, campaign, and ramp-up resources under the AirOps community. So potentially join the discussion on LinkedIn. And if you have further questions, contact our safety promotion gurus and safety management people at EASA. And I would like to thank to all our panelists, all of the guest speakers for great contribution. I would also like to thank for my colleagues behind the scene, John, Jean-Pierre, and Bogdan. And be ready and stay safe. Thank you all, and good day.
Thank you.
Thank you
See
to
you.
all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Nothing to add. Perfect. He did.